Hi everyone and welcome to Creative Cakes by Sharon. In today's tutorial I'll be showing you how to create this very impressive cake of the Joker, and he's one of the characters from the new Lego movie. If you haven't already seen my tutorials of some of the other characters in the Lego movie, you can click on their images below to check them out. So let's get started with the Joker. I'm using this template and I've got a board which I've covered as well as an 8-inch cake. I've got a fondant roller, my scissors, a sharp knife, an offset spatula and a palette knife, as well as my X-Acto blade. I've got my pizza cutter, I've got a 1/4 inch and a 1-inch round cutter, a little paintbrush with some water and some white chocolate ganache. I'm also using some white, yellow and green fondant, as well as a little bit of black, grey, light yellow and red. So let's get started. The first thing we need to do is cut the cake. So I've got my template on top of my cake, and I've also made some little cuts down the side of the bottom of his hair, because this is the back of his hair. So with my sharp knife I'm going to insert it into the cake and keep it vertical at all times and follow the line of the template. Make sure you get into the creases at the top of the hair because we really want those to stand out later on. Now to create his little Lego neck, I'm going to insert my knife about 1 centimeter into the cake at the top, and then from the front of the cake I'm just going to push my knife into the cake to remove that little section. Now I'll just remove all the excess before we move on to the next stage. Here I've got some beautiful white chocolate ganache and I'm going to use this to cover the entire cake. You'll notice that my ganache is fairly runny, and I do this because it's easy to smooth over the cake without getting too many crumbs caught in the ganache. And if yours is a bit hard and set, you just pop it in the microwave for about 20 seconds. So we're just going to cover the entire cake, the top and sides, and then put it in the fridge to set for about 15 minutes. While the ganache is setting, I'm going to add some decoration to my board to make it look like a Lego board. So to take the inspiration of the Joker's poisonous flower, I'm going to use this yellow fondant to create some Lego dots so it looks like a Lego board. So I'm rolling out my fondant to about 3 mil thick, and then I'm going to use my 1-inch cutter to cut out a series of circles. Then with the paintbrush and some water, I'm just going to lift up the circles and dampen them with a little bit of water and adhere them to the board. So I'm going to adhere them in a vertical line up the board and then across the board horizontally. As the cake is going to be sitting in the center of the board, I don't need to cover the middle of the board with dots, so I'm going to use my template as a guide and place it on the board and then work around the template, covering the board with the dots. I've got my cake back out of the fridge now and it is set to the touch, and I'm just going to use a hot spatula which I've dipped in boiling water, and I've wiped off the excess water with a paper towel. I'm going to smooth that over the entire surface of the cake to create as flat and smooth a surface as I possibly can. Now I can start to think about covering the cake, and I'm going to start with the white of the Joker's face. So I've cut the template off from the top of the hairline, and I've got my white fondant here which I'm going to roll out. I want to roll this out to about 1 to 2 mils thick, and then once I've rolled it out to a large enough circle, I'm going to cut along the top of the template and leave about 2 to 3 inches at the bottom of the template because this is going to cover the front and sides of the cake. Now I'm gently going to put my fondant onto my roller, and before I place it on the cake, I'm just going to grab my stencil and place it on top of the cake, and with the knife I'm just going to score a line at the top of the template. This line is going to act as a guide to help me position my fondant in the right place. So I'm going to gently roll the fondant onto the cake and then lift up the sides and smoothen out the top with my hand. I haven't used a cake smoother for this tutorial, and I'm just going to show you how easy it is when you've got a smooth surface on your ganache to achieve a smooth surface on your fondant finish. Once I've got into all the creases, I'm just going to trim off the excess fondant before then giving a nice clean cut right up against the Joker's face. Now I'm going to work on the Joker's hair using my green fondant, and I'm going to do the back sections of his hair, and these were the 2 sides that we originally folded upwards when we were cutting the shape of the cake out. So basically all I want is a rectangular shape. I'm after a sharp corner, and then I'm just going to attach it a bit below where the ear would be on both sides of the cake with a little bit of water, pressing it nicely into the groove there and trimming off the excess fondant along the line of the bottom of the cake. Now that we've done those 2 side bits of hair, I'm just going to trim them off the template and then use the template again on my green fondant and cut around the top part of the template as well as the inside top of the hairline, and then gently putting it onto my rolling pin and lowering it onto the cake itself. Now it's a matter of smoothing the fondant on the edges and the corners to get a nice seamless finish, and of course make sure to get into all of the grooves with your fingers so that they really stand out. Once I've got a nice smooth surface on the top of the hair, I'm just going to go around the edge of the hair with my X-Acto blade and neaten up all of the edges. With my board in front of me now, I'm just going to transfer the cake onto the board. You can see that the hair looks fairly plain on the cake, so I'm going to create these ridges into the hair using the back of my paintbrush. So I'm going to use the template as a guide as well as the grooves in the cake that we created, and press my paintbrush gently from the back of the cake down the front of the cake. And I'm using a fair bit of firm pressure here, but not too much so that I cut into my fondant. So you can see it creates a really lovely ridged effect. Now I'm going to work on all of the features of the joker, such as the mouth and the eyes, and I've cut them out of the template. So now the first part of the mouth is going to be the red lips. So I've rolled out some red fondant and I'm going to cut with my blade right around the bottom and top lip, but not going right to the very corner. Then I'm going to remove the template and cut on an angle both sides of the mouth. You can see what shape I'm left with once I remove the excess fondant. Now I'm going to trim down the stencil and work with the black section of the mouth. So I've got my black fondant rolled out and I'm going to cut right around the edge of the template. Before I put this black fondant away, I'm just going to grab my 1/4 inch circle cutters and cut 2 circles for the eyes. Now I can start building up the pieces of my mouth, and I'm going to put the black part of the mouth on top of the red lips. I don't need to use any water here because the black fondant is quite moist already. And I'm just going to use my template over the top just to make sure that I've got the exact shape. Now I can cut my mouth template down further yet again to leave the yellow section of the mouth, and then just simply trace around that over some rolled yellow fondant and position that on top of the black section of the mouth. I'm going to follow the same procedure now to achieve the greys of the eyes, and once I've done that I'm going to position the black round circles onto the grey fondant. To position the features correctly on the cake, I've just got my template and I'm going to use the back of my X-Acto blade to make a little bit of a mark on the cake, and then position the mouth and the eyes onto the cake using a little bit of water to adhere them properly. Now before I put my grey fondant away, I'm going to create all of these little accents, which are the creases around the cheeks and the eyes and a little crease in his forehead. So I'm just going to roll out some little snakes using my palm and position them over the top of the template to get the exact shape and size, and then I'm going to do the same with some black fondant for the eyebrows. It's really easy if you position these things over the top of the stencil, and because it's a very small amount of fondant they dry and take the shape very quickly. So now I'm just going to moisten the cake with my paintbrush just over the top of the eye so that I can position the eyebrows into place, and do the same with all of those little creases and dimples around the cheeks and the eyes. You can see that when I pick up these little pieces of fondant, they've already hardened into the exact shape that we want. Now I'm going to follow the same procedure to create his pointy green eyebrows and just position them on the cake, and this time I'm just going to flatten them out a little bit so that they're not so round. Finally, I'm just going to make 2 whites of the eyes for the joker with 2 little balls of white fondant and adhere them to the cake. And there you go. I think it's a very simple yet impressive cake that you can create at home of the Joker from the new Lego movie. In the coming weeks I'll be doing a couple more of the characters from the Lego movie, so stay tuned for those. Guys, if you enjoyed my video, please give it a like and share it with your friends. I'd love to hear your feedback and get your requests in the comment section below. You can find me on Facebook, where I'd love to see photos of your cakes that you've made by following any of my tutorials. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more great videos, and as always, thanks for watching.